All right. Hey there, Knicks fans. Welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Postgame Show, where I, yet again, have forgot to turn on my lights, which is why I'm in darkness here. Powered by our friends at BetUS. We have I actually didn't even refresh my page, so I don't know the final score offhand. 109-97 loss for the Knicks against the Houston Rockets. For anybody who was around for 1994, never great to lose to those guys, especially in Houston, but it is what it is. So annoying loss. Certainly a bit frustrating for a few reasons that we'll get into. I would again echo what I've been saying after all of the losses so far, all three losses so far this year, which is that patience is a virtue. It is game 6 into this process, and I think it can be hard to really abide by that sentiment when you start, well, like in this instance, racked off a couple wins in a row. One was both very nice, very good wins in different ways. So you start to get into this kind of false sense of confidence, like, okay, we figured it out, all is well. And then it makes you feel like, well, if things don't go as well, then someone's doing something wrong. And to be very clear, some folks did some things wrong tonight, and we're going to talk about those things. But this is still a team that is learning how to play with one another, and maybe not as much learning how to play with one another as just figuring out the optimal ways to operate on both ends of the court, but more specifically on offense. And I think that's where I want to start. So we just did the playback watch along. Shout out to everybody who joined us on the Knicks Film School YouTube channel and who watched along with us on playback. And Benji Ridholtz, who did the playback with me and Andrew, was on this from literally the opening tip. And it was the same thing that we saw in the Cleveland game, which is when you have a defense that does not play drop against the Knicks and employs a more switch-heavy coverage, a more aggressive coverage. Certainly, as the game went on, Houston was not hesitant to put 2 on the ball at times. How are you going to beat that? And the Knicks certainly throughout this game, much like was the case in the Cleveland game, they never really found a great flow on the offensive end. And not to say that they didn't make some shots at times, not to say that they didn't have some good possessions at times. They, for a while, were shooting lights out from downtown, ended up only finishing 11 of 28 for 39.3%. That's still pretty good as far as the percentage goes. But again, only 28 shots. So this is now, we are starting to sense some themes. So theme number 1, the ball movement slows down quite a bit when teams switch everything. And number 2, which is a function of number 1, when the ball movement slows down after teams switch a lot, the Knicks do not generate a lot of threes. And that was tough because on the inside of the arc tonight, the Knicks were not particularly good. And their final percentage was they actually shot worse from 2-point range than they did from 3-point range, which is, you would think that that's hard to do. And again, I want to be careful here because I don't want to make it out to be like, oh, New York's offense is broken or they're never going to be able to figure this out. They will figure it out. And I'm going to go right into some of the reasons why I think they will be able to figure it out. One big reason, at least. But like a lot of the shots they missed tonight, I did think were good shots. Now, that being said, much like Cleveland, who had Evan Mobley out there kind of disrupting everything, even when the Cavs were switching and he was always kind of lurking. The thing with Houston is, for as much as they do have leave a target out there a lot in Alperen Sengun, and the Knicks, I thought, did at times a nice job of trying to bring him into actions and take advantage of that matchup, they don't offer any other soft spots. Like Dylan Brooks is a brick wall. Fred VanVleet's been, I don't know how many, I don't think he's made all defense, but maybe he's made one or so, but he's as good a defensive guard as you're going to find at his height at the very least. And then I always get the Thompson kids mixed up. They're Thompson that they have, not Detroit's Thompson. They're Thompson. And that was probably, if we're going to just go right to the most frustrating part of tonight, Amen Thompson. Thank you, Kevin. The most frustrating, and I didn't even mention Jabari Smith Jr. He's a good defender. Tari Eason, my God, what an impact. Tari Eason only scored 7 points tonight. What an impact he had on this game tonight. And so, yeah, like the frustrating part tonight is as the game was winding down, you had Amen Thompson there, and Jalen Brunson was going at that matchup as if it was a mismatch. And you saw on some possessions when they would display more patience and where they would work it around and like continue to screen and continue to force the Rockets into difficult decisions about, okay, either we're going to, force Senjun to guard, Jalen Brunson, or we're going to put 2 on the ball. Like, good stuff happened when they did that, oftentimes involving Josh Hart as the screener. I thought Josh Hart had an excellent game tonight. Not a perfect game. Nobody had a really great game for the Knicks tonight. OG Anunoby was probably the best Knick, and he was very good. But even like they tried to put him on Senjun. We're going to talk about the other end of the floor in a bit. They tried to put them on Senjun, and it just was like a non-starter. It didn't go very well in a traditional coverage. Talk more on that in a bit. But OG was great for the most part, and Josh Hart was really good. But Jalen Brunson, I thought, honestly, I know he ended up with, what did he finish with? 29 points on 24 shots. Okay, sounds okay. Eight assists, no turnovers. Ended up with 1 turnover. It was at the very end. I'm not even counting that. His decision-making for different parts of this game, but especially down the stretch, challenging one-on-one in which, it felt unnecessary. Felt like if you work the ball more, you're going to be able to get better stuff, even as the Rockets were switching a lot. And again, much like the Cleveland game, when teams switch, and this is maybe the third big takeaway, Karl-Anthony Towns is the one who seems not to get the shots. Now, is part of that because of who the Rockets were guarding him with and the fact that the Knicks did not feel that that was as good of a, or like it was, it's almost as if the Rockets were already conceding the mismatch up front and they were comfortable with it. And the Knicks looked at that and said, well, all right, we're going to go elsewhere. It was a weird thing, right? And like, I thought Towns, was obviously exceptional on the boards tonight, finished with 19 rebounds overall, including 9 on the offensive glass. I thought he really responded to what was not a great first half, and I thought he came back in a big way in the second half. Again, not perfect, made some mistakes for sure, but had some really nice moments, and I thought he really showed me something in the second half tonight. So I'm not putting this one on Towns. I honestly, I'm not putting this on anyone. For as much as I think Brunson did not have a particularly good game and did not do a great job as the floor general, making sure the Knicks got good shots down the stretch. Like, nobody was bad, like really bad in this game, at least amongst the starters. But nobody was great. They needed someone to step up and have like a really great game. Ideally, multiple guys. The one guy I haven't mentioned is Mikal Bridges. Maybe he's the closest one of the 4-star or the 5 starters that had a poor game. Again, this is a little bit of a theme already so far this season. Bridges' one-on-one defense, his ability to, navigate screens and stick with guys. Couple nice moments tonight, couple not so nice moments tonight. So you didn't really feel him on defense, and then offensively, he was 6 of 14 from the field. 3 of 8 from deep. Like, and a lot of good looks in there. Looks you hope that he makes. Didn't go down. He threw probably the worst pass I've seen a Knick throw this year on a turnover in, I think it was the fourth quarter. I'm not even sure. It was definitely the second half, towards the end of the game. And that was really very frustrating. But all that stuff that I'm talking about on the offensive end, like, to say that I have no doubt in my mind they're going to figure all that stuff, zero doubt. They're going to figure all that stuff out. That's why I'm like, this is a patience loss. This is a give it some time loss. They will figure out how to exploit defenses like Houston. Give Houston all the credit in the world. Houston came to play tonight. I thought they played an exceptional game, and that is even with them being unable to hit the far side of a barn from deep. They finished 8 of 33, made some big ones late, but still, like, That's probably the most frustrating part of tonight. Is the Knicks got a team that for much of this night was not shooting even 20% from three, and they couldn't figure out a way to win. That's the frustrating part. But give Houston all the credit. They played really well. They're a very well coached team. Not perfect, but very, very well coached. And so that's the offense. On the defense, Knicks didn't play that bad. Fred VanVleet was going off early. I thought the Knicks were doing what they could against him. He was hitting some crazy shots. You tip your cap to some extent. And then it was Sengun. And then it's like, what do? You go with Cat? You go with the size? Do you go with OG? Neither of those were working particularly well. So then it comes down to, all right, well, then you got to double. And the Knicks they double less than probably any team in the league. Doesn't mean they shouldn't. Doesn't mean they can't. It means, again, it's early in the season, and I'm not sure that they're at that level where, and we saw there was one, and when the Knicks double at times, it's funny how often you see this because it's not what they do often. Something gets botched. So like that the completely uncontested, I think it was an Amen Thompson dunk down the middle of the lane in the fourth quarter there. That came off a double when it was like, why are you doubling? There are other times where there's an obvious switch that they don't make. I know there was one in the fourth quarter that resulted in open Dylan Brooks. I'm pretty sure it was Dylan Brooks 3 that he made. But again, that was, I think, between either Bridges. It was between two of the wings, So again, there are kinks that they need to work out on offense. Certainly kinks you got to work out on defense. But the thing with defense is like, you are always going to have the personnel issues that you have. Tonight, it manifested itself in a way that we have not seen and we may not see again this year in an opposing center, just going at Towns, posting up time after time after time after time. He's got to be a little bit better for sure. Like, don't let the guy get to his right hand. Would be way number one. But again, he'll live and he'll learn, and they will live and they'll learn, and they'll figure some stuff out. Again, I'm not going crazy about any of that. Let's talk about the bench because I have a feeling that that's what's probably going to dominate the conversation. Jericho Sims, if I was going to wager donut on what most of the super chats are going to be about tonight, I would wager it's about Jericho Sims. Jericho Sims played 16 minutes tonight. What was he? You want to know again, I've said this for years. Game to game plus minus. Not that it's always worthless. It is often worthless. And if you want to look tonight, plus 14, Jalen Brunson, team high. It is not representative of how he played. Was he the reason they lost? No. He was not the reason they lost, which is why, for as much attention as he's going to get, it's not really deserved. Made a couple plays, made a couple nice plays, made far more worse plays. And I think right now with Sims, it is the backup quarterback situation where it's like the backup quarterback for a guy who's not playing well is always going to be the most popular guy in town. We've seen Hukporty a little bit. We've seen Hukporty enough to think like, hey, that guy could do some things. Why don't we maybe see him? Tibbs, you know how he's going to be. He's going to give the veteran guy enough rope to strangle himself. Now, have we gotten to that point with Sims yet? It felt like we were getting pretty close at times tonight. But again, it's game 6. Are we there yet? I don't know. Is it why they lost the game tonight? I don't think it's why they lost the game tonight. I think there were some other things that the Knicks did not do and could have done that they did not do, and that they allowed the Rockets to do that were bigger issues. But when you have a situation like you have now, and it stands out, So that's that. McBride has his by far worst game of the season, 0 for 9 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3. You want to look at that as a little bit of an equalizer to the fact that the Rockets weren't hitting shots because McBride's been much better, obviously, from deep all year. That's fine. A couple of those threes goes down. You know what this felt like? This felt like a game if the Knicks could actually take the lead they might actually win this thing, and they could never get over the hump. And they had some looks. They had some opportunities, but they could never get there. But that's not on McBride. That's on, that's on everybody. And then Tyler Kolek. We got a little Tyler Kolek in the first half. Hit a shot, didn't touch the ball for about 4.5 minutes. I thought he looked okay. It's hard to tell. He had like 2 possessions where he actually did a thing. Made a really nice pass, hit a nice shot. Good for him. I guess the last thing, and this is also going to be a topic of conversation, is the minutes. Jalen Brunson played the entire second half. Mikal Bridges played the entire second half. OG Anunoby ended up playing 40 minutes. I mean, Josh Hart played 38 minutes, but who cares? That's fine. And then Towns was the only one that played less than that. He played 32, but that's partially because he was in foul trouble in the first half. It's a lot of minutes. It's a lot of minutes for the 6th game of the season. If you want to yell and scream about it, I'm obviously not, as you can tell by the fact that I've been talking for 17 minutes and the first time I'm mentioning it, does not going to elicit that kind of response from me. But if you want to yell and scream, have at it. I'm not gonna put you down. It's a lot of minutes. It's a lot of minutes for any game in an NBA season. It's a lot of minutes for Game 6 in particular. But they are thin. No Mitch, no Achua, no Shamet, no campaign. Tibbs has 6 guys that he trusts. And that's tough to win basketball games that way. So I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, they converted Huck Porty today. We have the reported signing of Matt Ryan. Is Matt Ryan the answer here? Is Matt Ryan going to come in and play significant minutes for them and be able to give some of these wings a rest? I don't know. But they need to get healthy, and they need to get healthy sooner rather than later, because I agree with anybody who says that ultimately this is not sustainable. I totally agree with that. It is not sustainable. But they've had a lot of rest early in the season. This was only their 6th game. They've played whatever it's been, 6 games in 13 days? No, it's been more than that. I don't know. Whatever it's been. They have not played a ton of basketball. They've played as few games as anybody in the league. So, maybe the guys were rested and they felt like they could go. But that's basically that. I don't really have anything else to say about this game. I thought they came back in the second half and really, they made the push at the end of the first half. I thought they made a push in the second half. They got themselves back in the game. But, I guess maybe the one thing I haven't mentioned, they came out at the start and it's just like the requisite energy level, the requisite energy was not quite there. And maybe that's really the first thing I should have said. And maybe that's the most important thing that could have been said. Before we get to Super Chats and Bet US, I will do the autograph signature moment of the game. Couple of contenders. I will go. I thought there was a possession early on in the fourth quarter that got them to within 3, made it 87-84, where Jalen Brunson made a really nice defensive play. He actually made multiple nice defensive efforts on the same possession, forced the turnover. Josh Hart got it to Karl-Anthony Towns on the post. Just a great 2-way sequence in a game that did not have a ton of great 2-way sequences. But that, again, brought the Knicks to within 3. I think it was the closest they were, since the opening minutes. And we'll give that our autograph signature moment of the game. Again, go over and download the autograph app. If you are on there, went on today, you would have seen my 3x3 segment where I look back at 3 things from the previous week and look ahead to 3 things from the week ahead. Funny enough, on the aforementioned autograph segment today, I posited who's going to win between the battle of the rebounds. Houston Rockets, exceptional offensive rebounding team. Knicks, 5th best defensive rebounding team by percentage in the league this year. How did that turn out? After getting destroyed on the boards early, Rockets only ended up with 11 offensive rebounds. It's still more than you like, but it's you could live with that. The bigger issue, 39 defensive rebounds for the Rockets, but then again, that's because the Knicks took a lot of shots and missed a lot of shots. So I guess maybe 50-39 rebounding edge, not the end of the world when you put it into context, but that was that.